The shadow is often misunderstood, feared, and avoided. It represents the parts of life and of ourselves that we are hesitant to confront, the pain, the flaws, the regrets, the hidden corners of our psyche that we tuck away to maintain the illusion of perfection. But the shadow is not an enemy, it is a profound and necessary teacher. In the natural world, shadow is created by light. It is not the opposite of illumination, but its companion, revealing dimensions and depth that pure light alone cannot show. In the same way, the shadows of our lives reveal truths we might otherwise miss. They bring forward what we have ignored or suppressed, forcing us to confront it. When the shadow arrives, it often feels like discomfort, confusion, or even despair. But these feelings are signals. They point us toward the aspects of ourselves and our experiences that we need to explore and understand. The shadow teaches us humility by exposing our limits. It shows us the futility of denial and the richness that comes from facing reality, even when it's uncomfortable. Through the shadow, we are reminded of our wholeness. To be human is to encompass both light and dark, joy and sorrow, triumph and failure. The shadow teaches us to accept this duality, to stop striving for an impossible purity, and to embrace the full spectrum of our existence. Most importantly, the shadow invites growth. By confronting what we fear, by leaning into what we avoid, we find strength and wisdom. It is in facing the shadow that we discover who we truly are, beyond the masks we wear and the illusions we create. The shadow does not seek to harm us, it seeks to make us more complete. The silence before the storm. Silence is a curious and often unsettling presence. It is not mere absence, but a pregnant stillness, a void teeming with unspoken potential. When we encounter silence before a storm, whether literal or metaphorical, it can feel like a betrayal, a withdrawal of guidance at the very moment we need it most. Yet this silence is not abandonment, it is preparation. In the natural world, the calm before a storm is almost eerie. The air grows thick, time seems to slow, and even nature holds its breath. Birds stop singing, the wind stills, and the sky takes on a foreboding hue. This stillness is not empty, it carries weight, tension, and anticipation. It is the universe gathering its forces, poised on the brink of transformation. In our lives, the silence before the storm manifests in moments when all external movement seems to halt. We look for answers, but none come. We cry out for direction, but only an echo returns. This silence can feel suffocating, even cruel, as if the universe has turned its back on us. But in truth, this silence is a sacred pause. It is the space where we are called to listen not to the noise of the world, but to the quieter voice within. The silence before the storm teaches us patience. It forces us to sit with our uncertainty, to let go of the need for immediate solutions, and to trust in the unfolding of events beyond our control. It is a moment of profound vulnerability, where we are stripped of distractions and compelled to confront our fears, our hopes, and our deepest selves. This stillness is also a threshold. It marks the boundary between the known and the unknown, the familiar and the transformative. It is a liminal space where the old has not yet fully passed, and the new has not yet fully arrived. In this in-between, we are offered a rare opportunity to prepare not by acting, but by being. The collapse of certainty. Certainty is the foundation upon which we build our lives. We crave it, cling to it, and structure our identities around it. It is the safe harbor in a chaotic world, the ground beneath our feet. Yet when certainty collapses, as it inevitably does, it feels like the end of everything we know. But this collapse is not destruction for its own sake, it is an invitation to awaken. The collapse of certainty often arrives unbidden and unexpected. It might come as a loss, a job, a relationship, a belief system, or as a seismic shift in the world around us. The familiar ground crumbles, and we are left adrift, grasping for anything solid. This is an unsettling, often painful experience, as the structures we've leaned on for meaning, security, and identity no longer hold. But what is certainty, really? It is a construct, a creation of the mind to make sense of a universe that is at its core ever-changing. We build our certainties like sandcastles, intricate and beautiful, but vulnerable to the tide. When the tide inevitably comes, it is not an act of cruelty, but a reminder of the impermanence of all things. The collapse of certainty strips us of illusions. It forces us to confront the reality that life is not a straight line, that control is a fleeting illusion, and that the answers we thought we had were, at best, incomplete. This is not a comfortable revelation, but it is a necessary one. For in the space where certainty once stood, something new can emerge. In the rubble of certainty lies possibility. The collapse creates a void, and while voids can feel terrifying, they are also spaces of creation. Without the weight of rigid beliefs or fixed expectations, we are free to explore, to question, to grow. This is the fertile ground where transformation begins, where we discover truths that are deeper, more fluid, and more aligned with the vast, unpredictable nature of existence. The discomfort of the unknown. The unknown is one of the most persistent sources of human discomfort. It is the space where clarity dissolves, where answers elude us, and where our carefully constructed maps fail to guide us. We are creatures of habit and familiarity, and stepping into the unknown often feels like stepping into a void. This discomfort, however, is not a punishment, it is a signal, a catalyst for transformation. The unknown challenges our deepest instincts for safety and control. It exposes the fragility of the narratives we tell ourselves about who we are, where we are going, and what life means. In this uncertainty, we often encounter fear of failure, fear of loss, fear of discovering truths we may not be ready to face. Yet these fears are not enemies, they are guides, pointing us toward the boundaries of our comfort zones and inviting us to expand beyond them. In the discomfort of the unknown, we come face to face with the ego's limitations. The mind craves certainty and labels it wants to define, categorize, and predict. But the unknown resists these efforts, refusing to be pinned down. This resistance can feel like chaos, but it is also liberation. It is a chance to let go of the need to control every aspect of our lives and to surrender to the flow of something greater than ourselves. The unknown also holds immense creative potential. It is the blank canvas, the uncarved block, the fertile soil in which new possibilities can take root. But creation requires us to embrace the discomfort of not knowing. It requires us to trust in the process even when the outcome is unclear. This is where courage is born, not the absence of fear, but the willingness to move forward despite it. In navigating the unknown, we are reminded of our resilience. The human spirit is not designed to stay static, it is built to adapt, to explore, and to grow. The discomfort we feel is a sign of life itself, a reminder that we are engaged in the ongoing dance of existence, where certainty is fleeting, but the potential for discovery is infinite. With disruption of patterns. Patterns are the rhythms of life that give us a sense of stability and predictability. They are the routines we follow, the habits we form, and the systems we rely on to navigate our days. Yet, as comforting as patterns may be, they can also become cages, trapping us in cycles that limit our growth. The echo of our own creation. Life has a curious way of reflecting back to us what we project into the world. This phenomenon, often unnoticed, manifests as the echo of our own creation, the consequences of our choices, actions, and beliefs reverberating through the fabric of existence. These echoes are not random, they are precise, shaped by the energy we emit and the intentions we carry. The echo of our own creation can take many forms. Sometimes it arrives as joy and fulfillment, the direct result of actions aligned with our higher selves. Other times it comes as struggle, conflict, or even suffering uncomfortable mirrors showing us where we have acted out of fear, ignorance, or disconnection. The world responds to us not as a judge, but as a perfect reflection, giving back exactly what we have contributed. This echo is not limited to grand gestures or monumental decisions, it arises in the smallest moments as well. A kind word can ripple outward, touching lives in ways we may never see. Conversely, a careless action or thoughtless word can spiral into unintended consequences. The echo reminds us that nothing we do is insignificant, that every choice carries the weight of its potential to shape the world around us. In hearing these echoes, we are given the opportunity to learn. They are not punishments, but lessons, guiding us toward greater awareness and alignment with the universal rhythms of harmony and balance. If the echo is painful, it is an invitation to examine the root cause, to ask ourselves what energy or intention gave rise to this result. If the echo is joyful, it is a confirmation of a path well taken, encouraging us to continue in that direction. The echo of our own creation also underscores the interconnectedness of all things. What we send out into the world does not end with us, it weaves into the greater tapestry of existence, affecting others and eventually circling back to us. This cycle reminds us that we are not separate from the world, but an integral part of its unfolding, with the power to shape its course through our thoughts, words, and deeds. The echoes we encounter reveal not only the external effects of our actions, but also the internal truths we carry. They reflect the beliefs we hold about ourselves and the world, mirroring our fears, hopes, and aspirations. In this way, the echo is both a consequence and a teacher, offering us the chance to understand ourselves more deeply and to choose more consciously as we move forward. The void as potential. The void is often seen as a place of emptiness, a vacuum devoid of meaning or substance. It is the space where the familiar dissolves, leaving us adrift in uncertainty and nothingness. Yet the void is not barren, it is fertile. It is the womb of creation, the canvas upon which all possibility is painted, and the wellspring from which new realities emerge. In the natural world, the void is ever present. A seed begins its journey in the dark soil, where no light penetrates, and yet it is there that life takes root. The vastness of space, seemingly empty, holds the raw material for stars, planets, and galaxies to form. The void is not absence, it is potential in its purest form, waiting to be shaped by intention and action. In our lives, the void often appears in moments of transition or loss. When a relationship ends, when a chapter of life closes, or when a belief system crumbles, we are left with a void. This emptiness can feel disorienting, even terrifying, as it strips away the familiar and confronts us with the unknown. But within this space lies the opportunity to create something entirely new, something unbound by the limitations of the past. The void is a paradox. It is both nothing and everything, a space of stillness that hums with infinite potential. To enter the void is to let go of what was and to embrace the uncertainty of what could be. It requires courage, for the void offers no guarantees and no clear answers. It is an invitation to step into the mystery, to trust in the unseen, and to allow the process of creation to unfold. The void is also a mirror. reflecting back the energy we bring into it. If we approach it with fear, it may amplify that fear, appearing as a chasm of despair. But if we approach it with openness and curiosity, the void reveals itself as a wellspring of possibilities, each one waiting for us to breathe it into existence. It is a space where the boundaries of the self dissolve, where the ego quiets, and where we reconnect with the vast, formless potential of the universe. In the void, time and structure lose their grip. It is not a place of linear progression, but of timeless presence, where the seeds of the future are planted in the fertile ground of now. It is a reminder that what seems like emptiness is, in fact, a rich and dynamic field of creation, where the essence of life itself resides, waiting to be called forth. Time as an illusion. Time, as we understand it, is one of the greatest constructs of human consciousness. We measure it, mark it, and structure our lives around its flow. We speak of it as a river, endlessly moving forward, carrying us from one moment to the next. Yet, when we pause to truly examine the nature of time, we find that it is not as solid or linear as it appears. Time is, in many ways, an illusion and invention of the mind to make sense of a reality far more fluid and dynamic. Consider the past, present, and future. We treat them as distinct entities, the past as something fixed and immutable, the present as fleeting and transient, and the future as a realm of endless possibility. But these divisions are creations of thought. The past exists only as memory, stored within the folds of our consciousness. The future exists only as imagination, a projection of possibilities that have yet to manifest. What we call the present is a constantly shifting point of awareness, impossible to pin down or hold. Even science reveals the illusory nature of time. At the quantum level, particles do not adhere to a strict timeline. They exist in states of superposition, where multiple possibilities coexist until observed. Einstein's theory of relativity further complicates our understanding, showing that time is not absolute but relative, bending and stretching based on speed and gravity. These revelations suggest that time is not an inherent property of the universe, but a lens through which we perceive it. The illusion of time profoundly shapes our experience of life. We bind ourselves to the clock, believing in its authority, measuring our worth by how efficiently we use its passing moments. This perception traps us in cycles of regret for the past and anxiety for the future, leaving us disconnected from the present, the only space where life truly unfolds. When we begin to see through the illusion of time, we encounter a deeper truth, the eternal now. In this state, past and future collapse into a singular moment of existence. The memories we hold are simply echoes of past nows, and the future we anticipate is a projection of potential nows. Everything that has ever happened, and everything that will ever happen, exists within the infinite expanse of this present moment. Understanding time as an illusion does not negate its usefulness. The construct of time allows us to organize, co-organize, communicate, and navigate the physical world. But when we mistake the map for the territory, we lose sight of the timeless essence of our being. We forget that we are not bound by the ticking of the clock, but are part of a reality that transcends it, a reality where beginnings and endings blur into a continuous flow of existence. The illusion of time also challenges our notions of growth and change. We often think of evolution as a linear process. In this sense, pain is not a punishment, but a catalyst for growth. Like a teacher, it pushes us to engage with life in a more profound way. It requires us to be present, to be mindful of our internal states, and to cultivate the courage to listen to what is being communicated. To resist pain is to ignore the messages it carries, But to embrace it is to enter into a transformative process where healing, understanding, and self-discovery are possible. Pain also has a way of breaking down the barriers between us and others. In moments of pain, we become acutely aware of our vulnerability, and this shared vulnerability creates connection. When we suffer, we are reminded of our shared humanity, the fact that we are all subject to the ebbs and flows of joy and sorrow. Pain, then, becomes a universal language, one that transcends words and brings us into deeper empathy with others. It helps us understand that we are not alone in our suffering, that everyone carries some form of pain, and through this collective experience we can find solidarity. Pain, too, can be a catalyst for creativity. In the act of transforming pain, we often find expression, whether it be through art, music, writing, or other forms of creation. The process of channeling pain into something beautiful or meaningful allows us to transmute suffering into growth, healing, and insight. It is through our wounds that we often discover our deepest gifts, as they push us to explore new ways of being and create from the raw materials of experience. However, to understand pain as a language requires patience and acceptance. It requires us to sit with the discomfort, to resist the impulse to flee or numb. Pain cannot be understood through avoidance. It must be felt fully, heard carefully, and explored with compassion. Like any language, pain has its own nuances and subtleties. At times it may be loud and obvious, but at other times it speaks softly in whispers, requiring us to be still enough to hear. When we learn to listen to the language of pain, we begin to develop a deeper relationship with ourselves and the world around us. We stop seeing pain as an obstacle and start recognizing it as a tool for self-awareness, a guide that can lead us to greater wisdom. Through this process, we come to understand that pain is not something to be feared or avoided, but something to be embraced as part of the larger tapestry of life, a necessary and integral part of the human journey. Nature's alarms. Nature, in its infinite wisdom, speaks to us through subtle and not so subtle alarms, warning us of imbalances, dangers, and the need for change. These alarms come in many forms, some loud and jarring, others soft and whispered, but all carry messages that are essential for our survival and well-being. We often overlook or ignore these alarms, dismissing them as mere coincidences or background noise, but in doing so we risk disconnecting ourselves from the natural world and the profound insights it offers. The first alarm we experience is often the most immediate and physical, our bodies. When something is wrong, whether it be a slight headache, a persistent ache, or an acute injury, our bodies signal distress. These signals are not random or inconvenient. They are messages from the body's deep intelligence, pointing to areas that need attention, rest, or healing. Chronic illness, fatigue, or sudden pain are all nature's alarms, urging us to listen, slow down, and address the root cause of our discomfort. In modern society, we often push through physical pain, masking it with medications or distractions, but this only delays the inevitable reckoning with the body's needs. When we heed these alarms, we give ourselves the chance to rest, recover, and restore balance. Similarly, the natural world around us also sends alarms, though we often fail to recognize them until it is too late. Climate change, deforestation, and pollution are not merely distant problems, they are alarms that the Earth itself is sounding. Rising temperatures, extreme weather events, and the loss of biodiversity are all signs that the delicate balance of the natural world is under threat. Just as our bodies give us signals of distress, so too does the planet warn us of the consequences of our disregard for its ecosystems. When we ignore these alarms, we risk pushing the Earth past a tipping point where the damage becomes irreversible. But when we listen and respond, we can begin the process of healing, not only for ourselves, but for the planet that sustains us. Emotional and psychological disturbances also serve as alarms, alerting us to deeper internal needs. Anxiety, depression, anger, and other emotional upheavals are not random or signs of weakness. They are invitations to look within. These emotions arise when we are out of alignment with our true selves, or when we are neglecting parts of our psyche that require attention. Anxiety, for example, may signal that we are living in the future, too caught up in worry or fear, while depression may be a call to reconnect with our inner purpose and passion. Anger often arises when we feel unheard, violated, or powerless, urging us to examine the boundaries we have set or the injustices we have encountered. The breaking of the ego. The ego, in many ways, is the false self we have created to navigate the world. It is a construct, a collection of identities, roles, and beliefs that we hold on to in order to feel secure, recognized, and defined. It is a mask we wear, a barrier between our true essence and the world around us. But the breaking of the ego, though often painful and disorienting, is one of the most profound transformations we can experience. It is not a destruction of the self, but a liberation from the illusion of separateness, the illusion that we are defined by our thoughts, our achievements, our possessions, or our social roles. The ego's primary function is to create a sense of individuality and separation. It convinces us that we are distinct from others, that we are alone in our experiences, and that we must protect ourselves from external threats. This sense of separateness is comforting on one level, for it creates an identity that we can cling to in the face of an otherwise chaotic and unpredictable world. But this very sense of separation is the root of suffering. It isolates us from others, from nature, and from our deeper selves, fostering a sense of fear, competition, and constant striving for validation. When the ego is broken, this illusion of separateness begins to dissolve. The walls that we have built around ourselves, the walls of identity, status, and self-importance, start to crumble. In this moment of breakdown, we may experience a profound sense of vulnerability and uncertainty. The ground we have relied on for so long feels unstable, and we are left facing the terrifying unknown of who we are without the ego to cling to. This is the point of transformation, the point where the old self begins to give way to a new understanding of being. The breaking of the ego is often triggered by moments of crisis or suffering. A deep loss, a betrayal, a failure, or a confrontation with mortality, these events shatter the carefully constructed narrative we have told ourselves about who we are. Suddenly, we are forced to confront the fragility of our identities, the transient nature of our achievements, and the impermanence of our place in the world. The ego, which once provided us with a sense of security, now becomes a source of pain, as it is revealed to be inadequate in the face of life's inevitable challenges. In these moments of crisis, the ego's grip loosens and the space for deeper self-awareness opens. We begin to see that our sense of self is not as fixed or solid as we once believed. It is not defined by our roles, our successes, or our failures. Instead, it is fluid, ever-changing, and interwoven with the fabric of the universe. We are not isolated individuals, but interconnected beings, part of the greater whole. This realization can be both liberating and frightening, for it forces us to let go of the security that the ego once provided and embrace the uncertainty of not knowing who we are. The breaking of the ego often leads to a shift in perspective. We begin to see ourselves and the world around us with fresh eyes, unclouded by the distortions of our previous self-concept. The world no longer appears as a collection of separate objects and events to be controlled, but as a dynamic, interconnected flow of existence. We are no longer the center of the universe, but a part of it, moving in harmony with the ebb and flow of life. This shift can bring a profound sense of peace, as we no longer feel the need to fight for control or recognition. We can simply be, without the constant pressure to prove our worth or defend our identity. The ego's breaking also opens the door to deeper compassion and empathy. When we no longer see ourselves as separate, we can begin to truly see others. We realize that their pain, their joy, their struggles are not so different from our own. We are all human, all part of the same web of life, and in this realization we can begin to act with greater kindness and understanding. The boundaries that once divided us, race, class, gender, nationality, begin to dissolve, and we can approach others with a sense of shared humanity rather than judgment or division. Moreover, the breaking of the ego invites us to explore the deeper layers of our consciousness. Without the ego's constant chatter and defense mechanisms, we can begin to hear the quiet whispers of our true selves, the parts of us that have been buried beneath the noise of identity. These whispers may come as a sense of inner peace, a deep knowing, or a connection to something greater than ourselves. This deeper self is not defined by external circumstances or labels, but by the essence of being pure, unconditioned, and free. In the breaking of the ego, we also confront the paradox of life. The ego is necessary for survival in the world. It helps us navigate our physical existence, interact with others, and fulfill our basic needs. But it is also the source of much of our suffering. The ego clings to control, resists change, and fears death.